Konnichiwa and welcome everybody. Today you will learn about the writing systems of Japan. Systems? Are there multiple? Yes, three to be exact. And why so many? Do people in Japan really know how to read using three different large sets of symbols? Well, yes, but it's more systematic than one might think of it. Let's start with the simple things and move on to the harder stuff. Firstly, let's take a look at the Japanese syllabaries. Hiragana and Katakana. Why are there two if, apparently, all symbols in them make similar sounds? For the sake of simplicity, one may think of hiragana as the primary syllabary, and of katakana as a sort of an alternative font for it, something like italics or even capital letters. To be more exact, katakana is used for borrowed words, or for sounds which are not quite words like boom and ha ha ha. Alternatively, they may be used to emphasize a certain word in order to distinguish it from the surrounding text, similarly to how caps can be used in English. Anyway, together with hiragana that is used for native words, they form the kana system. If your goal is to memorize all 92 of these, you may learn them in pairs. Focus on the hiragana variants, but hold in mind that they have alternative katakana shapes. Wait, didn't I just say that there are 92 of these? Why are there 96 symbols in these tables then? Well, notice we and we that are colored gray. These syllables are almost obsolete in modern Japanese, as they are basically only used in some rather rare names. Alright, but what about these vacant spaces then? Why are there empty spots in these beautiful 5 by 10 matrices? Wouldn't a system of exactly 50 sounds organized in a perfect vowel-consonant table be cooler? It would have been, but the modern Japanese language just happens to lack the sounds yi, ye, and wu. However, the symbols for these sounds do exist. It's just that they are basically never used. Finally, what about the N that doesn't fit into the matrices, which we have been ignoring so far? Why is there one consonant sound without any attached vowel? Well, N that also becomes M in certain positions turns out to be the only sound in Japanese that can be used in consonant clusters. Thus, it is technically not a part of the syllabary, and it's basically a purely alphabetical character. So it would not be wrong to say that there are 6 letters in Japanese. 5 pure vowels and 1 pure consonant. Actually, there's even more to kana. There are also dakuten that turn voiceless sounds like ka, sa, da, and ha into voiced sounds like ga, za, da, and ba, and handakuten that turns ha into pa. Other uses of these two diacritic symbols that are colored with gray are very rare, and you probably don't need to worry about them. All of this might sound rather complex and confusing, so here's a practical example of how to use kana. Let's say you need to write down Gabriel lives in America in Japanese. As you can see, half of the symbols are katakana, but why is that? Well, surprisingly enough, the words Gabriel and America are not native to Japanese, which means that they cannot normally be written in hiragana. First thing that might come to mind is, what's up with Gaburieru? Why does Gabrielle sound so different? Why are B and R separated by U? And why is there another U at the end? Well, because, as we have discussed, kana is a syllabary, meaning that it doesn't have simple consonants. Thus, consonant clusters do not normally occur. In foreign words, they are usually separated by U. Alright? But what's up with the ru instead of lu at the end? Well, that's just how it is in various languages of Asia. Ra and la are just treated as variants of the same sound. For instance, Chinese and Korean have a similar feature. Okay, let's now take a look at the hiragana part of this sentence. This symbol, usually pronounced as ha, here, makes the sound wa, and it is basically untranslatable in this context. It is a kind of a particle that marks the preceding word as the topic of the sentence. Roughly speaking, this role of wa could be thought of as definite article in English. Please do not quote me on that one, though. Moving on to these characters. Well, they are more straightforward. Ni just means in, and ndemas kind of indicates that we are explaining this information to somebody. Finally, the kanji su means residence. All right, now that we know the symbol su, let's discuss other kanji characters. How many of them are there? Around 3,000. And how many are needed to be more or less fluent? Well, around 1,000. Here's a list of the most basic kanji. If by any chance you know Chinese, you might notice that some characters are identical to Hanzi and even have the same meaning. That's natural, given that the Japanese writing systems are derived from Chinese characters. What's more, Japanese has a lot of Chinese loanwords. Still, however, the languages are not related, and the speakers of these tongues can't understand each other's speech or text. Only possibly a few words. Let's now take a look at a sample of normal Japanese text. These are the first two articles of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in Japanese. For a beginner, this might look very confusing, given that there are no spaces between the words. So to make it slightly easier, let's now color all kanji purple and all kana red. What about katakana, though? Well, it's not needed for this text, so we're only left with kanji and hiragana. As you can see, most of the symbols are hiragana. But is it more important than kanji? No, kanji is necessary to express most of the nouns, verbs, and adjectives, and hiragana is predominantly used for grammar, and for those native words without a corresponding kanji. So, do I really need to learn thousands of symbols to understand written Japanese? Well, if you are in the beginning of your study, you may break the kanji into corresponding hiragana symbols. Wow, much better. Why don't they do it like this in Japan? Isn't using a phonetic system much more convenient than memorizing all these logographic characters? Well, maybe, but in this case, at least two problems would arise. The first one being homophones. Homophones are quite common in different languages. They are basically words that share identical pronunciation, but have completely distinct meanings. And it just so happens that too many distinct Japanese words would have identical representations in kana. So traditionally, such words are distinguished by using different logographical characters. Here's an example. And what's the second problem? Space. No, not this space, but rather this kind of space. If all of the kanji symbols were turned into their kana realizations, the Japanese books, mangas, and newspapers would almost double in size. And nobody seems to be interested in such a waste of space and go against the tradition. In kids' books, however, the text is written predominantly in kana. So, look into that if you are a beginner and still suffer with kanji. The symbols are not random combinations of shapes, though. They are constructed from radicals, all of which represent a certain concept. Here's an example. The name of Japan itself. It consists of two kanji, ni and han. The first one means sun or day, and the second one means origin, book, or the adjective main. As you might know already, together they mean the origin of the sun. The sun symbol is already a radical, meaning that it cannot be broken down further. But the origin symbol is, in fact, composed of two simpler symbols, which mean tree and one, or beginning. The total number of radicals is 214. So, if we combine this number with the total number of modern kana, we will get just over 300 characters, which is nowhere near 3,000. So, please, don't give up. Study Japanese, subscribe to the channel, and share the video if you found it helpful. Also, stay tuned for the next video, in which we will discuss the Khmer Abugida. While it is not the largest alphabet, as people usually call it, it is a beautiful writing system nonetheless. Bye.